Hello everybody, my name's Kerryide from Kerryide Illustration, and today we are going to be colouring this quirky emu. If you haven't already drawn my emu, I have posted the link down below in the comments, so you might want to pause the video and pop on over to that first. The materials that we're going to need today are some Faber-Castell colouring pencils. These ones blend really nicely together. The colours that I chose for my quirky emu were some warm colours, the yellow, the orange and the red for the legs and the neck and the beak, and then I contrasted that with some cool colours of aqua, purple and blue for the feathers. But feel free to use whatever colour combination you like. We also need some fine liners. I've used a Faber-Castell and a Staedtler, but whatever fine tip black pen that you have on hand is okay. Some of the Sharpies are really fine, and also the black Stabilo would be a fine one to use. In addition to this, I used a couple more Stabilos, the purple, the green and the blue, to add a little bit of extra to my feathers and all my little bling on my emu. Okay, I think we're ready to start creating. I've decided to colour my emu's beak, neck and legs in warm colours, starting with yellow. So I'm going to neatly colour yellow all over these areas. Next, I'm going to add a little bit of dimension to my emu by using the darker colour orange in certain areas. I'm thinking the light source is coming from the left, so there will be shading on the right hand side and also shading underneath his beak and where his legs meet his body. You can see here I'm colouring underneath the beak and down the right hand side of his neck with just a little bit of orange on the right side. The lightest part will be the middle of his neck, which curves out and catches the light, so I am leaving that part yellow. Then we use the red pencil to add a little more depth and contrast between the lighter part of the emu's body and the shadow part. So colouring basically over on top of the orange in the same areas. Repeat the same procedure with the bulb at the end of his nose, starting with the orange, colouring a little bit on the left, but mainly putting the shadowing on the right hand side. Then you'll come over in your red pencil as well. You might notice that I swap back and forth from my orange to my red and back to my orange again until I'm happy with the shading and blending of the colours that I've achieved. I also look at other parts of my animal and decide if I need to darken up some of those. So at the moment I'm darkening up the areas on the neck of the emu. It will be a little darker either side of the ridge in the middle of the emu's beak, as not as much light will catch this area, so we're going to colour that in orange as well. The lower part of the beak will also be in shadow, so we're going to colour that quite dark with some orange and some red. Then repeat again on the other side. Now it's time to do the same process on the legs. When you colour the feet, the shadow may be coming from the bottom and up in between the toes. There will be quite a bit of shadow at the top part of the leg where it meets the body, because the feathers there will be shading it and preventing the sun from getting through. So make sure you make that a little bit dark all the way across the entire part of the leg. I still feel like underneath the feather area on the top of the legs isn't quite dark enough, so I'm going to come in with a little bit of blue shading, or perhaps you could use some brown. And I'm also going to add a little bit of that blue shading onto the bottom of the feet. To contrast the warm colours that I've used on the legs, neck and beak of the emu, I'm going to use some cool colours for the eyes and the feathers. I'm starting with an aqua green at the very top part of the eye, and then I'll move on to some purple and blue for the shading underneath. Just as we did with the other body parts, we're going to colour the whole eye green, and then starting at the bottom we will colour using our mid-tone, which is purple this time, and move upwards in the eye, but we're only going to go about halfway. Then we're going to use our darker tone, the blue, and start once again at the bottom, and sometimes I use little circle movements for this to blend it in better, and we're going to darken the bottom part of the eye right up with the blue. Then I just keep swapping between my three colours until I'm happy with the results I have achieved. Now for the body, we're going to start again with our light tone, the aqua, and colour the whole body. We're not really doing feathers at the moment, we're just colouring the underbody so that it's got a little bit of depth to it. The underside of this body is going to be a little bit darker again, like all our other parts, and so we're going to bring in the purple, which is our mid-tone, and start blending it in with the aqua, mainly colouring the bottom half of his body. Now we use blue, the darkest colour that we're using, and we'll be shading all on the right side of the body, because remember that right side was more in shadow than the left side, and right down to the bottom of the tail feathers and underneath his neck. You'll notice that I'm holding my pencil on the side and using the side of the lead. This actually blends a lot better than the tip of the lead, so make sure you give this a try. We're going to start creating our feathers with a black ink pen. I just did some little oval type shapes, opened at the end. I wasn't really happy with how my feathers turned out, and I changed it as I went, but to start off with I just did these big open feathers all the way around, and perhaps I would have been better off just coming in and colouring these a little bit. But it's really up to you, this section. You can decorate your feathers in any way you want. You might try on a little scrap piece of paper first, unlike me, so that you can work out what you want. Anyway, just give it a go. out here that I decided that I really wasn't liking my feathers, so I decided to change things up a bit and just do some little black flicks in a curvy sort of motion. So I was spreading those out through the feathers that I had already created and along the bottom. Anyway, keep going. Creating really is just about exploring and trying different things, and I was feeling like my emu needed a little bit more colour, so I grabbed some fine line markers and some blues and purples and added a few more lines using those. So emu feathers are quite messy, and I think we've effectively gotten our messy look on our emu. But now we're going to move on to the head feathers, and I'm starting with the aqua pencil again and just flicking up from the beak and outwards in any direction you want. Mix it up a little bit so that they look realistic. Feathers don't always go exactly in the same direction, so just keep flicking. So our emu is really gathering a little bit of personality, and we're going to bring some purple feathers in now, just in the same movements that you did with the green, working out where you want to place those purple ones. Now repeat the same with the blue. So just as we did with the body feathers, we're going to add a little bit more detail on top with our black fine liner. It's a little bit hard to see at the moment, but just keep doing little wriggly lines because emus are quite messy with their feathers. Maybe not quite as messy as this guy, but just keep working the black liner and some wiggly lines to create a little bit of texture. So you might have noticed that we've pretty much lost our eyelashes. I'm going to use a darker, thicker ink pen and come back over them and add a few little feathers at the end so that they really stand out. So the basis of our quirky emu is done. Now it's up to you to add a little bit more personality with whatever features you'd like. I'm going to add a little bit of bling with some anklets and a necklace, but you can add whatever you desire. Could be a skateboard next to him, some leg warmers, a scarf, some feathers in his hair, whatever you would like. So let your imagination run wild. So a couple of little finishing touches to add a little bit more definition and shading to the legs. I'm going to just do some really fine lines along the underneath of the feathers and down the right hand side. We use the same inking technique on the bottom of the feet and between the toes to create the shadow where the emu's foot touches the ground. My final step was to intensify the colours on the feathers a little bit more using my pencils, but you are free to do whatever you want to finish off your quirky emu, and I would love to see the final products. You can either email them to me or send them through to my Facebook page. Thanks for watching.